Hi, in this presentation I'm going to be talking about the IB Diploma's English A Individual Oral Assessment. This is going to be based on the Language and Literature course, and I'm going to be using a song by Kendrick, Lamar and a non-lit text to produce a sample answer for you and just explain how I went through and got that. So for the IO you need to pick roughly a 40-line extract from a literary work, and the same for a non-literary work. So here I'll be using Lamar and a comic strip for the non-lit. It's important when you have that to have a global issue that connects those two very closely. The global issue should be reasonably specific, so just the effect of racism, for example, wouldn't really work, but you can see the one that I chose below here. So the way I did this, initially I found the song that had the biggest impact on me and then thought, what kind of global issue did this deal with? I then chose 40 lines that I thought would give me the most to talk about in relation to that global issue. From there I zoomed in further, selecting specific examples because I know I'm not going to have time to talk about the whole extract in my presentation, and actually I don't need to. I need to be quite selective with my quotes, so these are the ones I'm going to focus on. It's also important to quote from the wider literary text, so here I've included 3 other Lamar songs that I feel also deal with this global issue. And after this I'll move into the non-literature text. This deals with Asian stereotypes, which I think moves away from Lamar slightly and helps me show that this is truly a global issue. And also I need to comment on some texts, some other texts by the same author within that body of work. That's very important, and so these are the ones I'm going to use. Okay, so here's my sample answer with the quotes on screen. My presentation today will deal with the destructive power of racial stereotypes in society, something that's been particularly prominent since the Black Lives Matter movement, but also an issue that affects many races, as we will see. My literary text is The Black of the Berry by US hip-hop star Kendrick Lamar, and the non-literary text is a work by Joshua Luna, a Filipino-American comic book artist. Both seek to portray the global issue by either taking back ownership of these stereotypes or by showing the long-term negative effects they can cause. So that's my introduction there, with a brief thesis to show where my argument is going at the end. Initially, this presentation will look at Lamar's The Black of the Berry. Lamar begins by dismissing what he sees as insincere claims about racial harmony. Instead, he seeks to reclaim the stereotypes and own them on his own terms. So here I'm making an initial point, and now it's important I back that up with evidence. In the alliterative phrase, "F your friendship," he forcefully dismisses any suggestion that racial harmony is possible in today's USA. Rather, he defines himself by ironically taking control of the racial stereotypes that have damaged his community. The line, "I'm black as the moon," is significant because the dark side of the moon is unseen, much like some black communities, and it's this other side, pointedly the white side, that is illuminated. By using the paradoxical phrase "a proud monkey," he takes one of the worst stereotypes and reminds us he is proud of his heritage. This leads us towards the chorus, where Lamar alludes to Wallace Thurman's 1929 novel The Black of the Berry. This phrase was initially actually positive, but Lamar subverts this in the line, "The bigger I shoot," which suggests the darker the skin tone is, the more dangerous a person is perceived to be, and the more likely they will be racially profiled by the police. Moving on, Lamar also uses stereotypical symbolism to expand his point. The chains and whips create a semantic field linked to slavery, but again Lamar takes ownership of this, as the chains now refer to the gold chains of successful rappers, and the whip is a term for a car, another symbol of success. The line every race start from the block could be a pun, as it seems to reference the fact that every race of humans originated from Africa or from black people. Overall, then, we can see how Lamar takes on stereotypes directly in order to make the listener challenge what they mean and the negative effects they can have. We see this too in Lamar's other works. Now here I'm just signposting that I'm about to move into the other work studied. In XXX, for example, Lamar highlights the media's use of racial stereotypes by mentioning right-wing news broadcaster Fox News, which he claims stokes fear of African Americans. The phrase, "Africa's reflection of me, that's what a mirror does," is of interest here, as it shows how Lamar feels the US reflects negative racial stereotypes in the same way a mirror does. And this last line ironically mirrors the sound of "that's what America does." Equally, in How Much a Dollar Cost, Lamar is himself guilty of stereotypes as he dismisses the panhandler, who turns out to be God. When Lamar says, "I got better judgment, I know when hustling," he's being ironic, as his judgment couldn't be more wrong here. Lamar attempts to actually explain these stereotypes in the song Fear when he references the Bible's book of Deuteronomy. This quote sometimes used to explain why minority groups feel oppressed, and Lamar shows here that he feels the only solution is a faith-based one, that is, then the following the Lord is the only way to remove the chip on your shoulder. Here then we see several examples of Lamar exploring the destructive power of racial stereotypes within his own community and also on others. So just at the end there, I'm returning to the global issue directly to wrap things up in this section before moving on. In the next session I will look at one of Lunars' texts. The purpose of this text is to directly show how a young man's self-worth is destroyed by his own family's compliance with racial stereotypes. And again, there's a quick thesis that sums up the meaning of this text. The 4 sequential panels show the boy literally growing as he becomes taller in each one. To begin with, the child, designated as such by the Teenage Mutant Ninja Hero t-shirt, is pulled out of the sun to avoid dark skin. Then in the next one he's told to pinch his nose to avoid having a stereotypical Asian feature. In the third panel, the boy appears to be a physical equal to the unnamed speaker, who we assume is a family member. Even here, though, the speaker continues to berate the young man using more imperatives in the form of "date whites only" and "stop speaking Tagalog." It is of note that the subject only speaks once to say, "I hate myself," in the final panel, which leads to the upturned hands, which connote concern and confusion about why this should be. And this is obviously some dramatic irony here, because as readers it's obvious why this self-hatred has occurred. It's because of the stereotypes he's been forced to conform to. The form of this text is of interest, as the comic strip allows us to see a clear progression, while the black and white colour palette reflects the subject's downbeat tone. Now I also need to comment on some other texts by the same author that are part of this body of work. The main text is called Assimilation, a play on words about how some people wish to assimilate their cultures into another, and in Lunar's other texts he uses a similar technique. In Detonation he mocks how a US man is fearful of an Asian co-worker, even though ironically he appears to have an Asian wife in the nearby photo. His stereotypes are deep-seated, and he appears to be triggered by any references, however obscure, to the conflict in Vietnam. Another Lunar work, Asian American Monomyth, again uses a play on words. This time he plays with the stereotypical rich, successful Asian American success story by contrasting this with the harsh realities of life for many people who work minimum wage jobs, are in jail, or face deportation. And so to conclude, we can see how these texts both challenge and seek to subvert racial stereotypes, and also expose how destructive and damaging they can be. Lamar attempts to explain and take ownership of them, while Lunar often explores how their negative effects are simply a part of his everyday culture, and by being so ingrained can be actually even more harmful. Thank you. Okay, so there's my presentation. I hope that's useful. It's a little under 10 minutes just to make it a little bit tighter for you to listen to in your presentation. It should last almost exactly 10 minutes, and then that'll be followed by some questions by your teacher. So good luck with that. I hope that's of use, and thank you for listening.